Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Bernie Sanders is telling us that the billionaire class is responsible for all of our woes. And Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, and Marco Rubio are pointing at immigrants and ISIS as our most important threats. But there's an irony here. Sanders and the Republicans seem to be on the very opposite end of things. But in fact, the candidates from the right and the candidate from the left are doing the very same thing. They are playing on a deep, dark need, an animal need. They are playing on our hunger for a villain on whom we can focus our anger. They are playing on an instinct that binds a social group together and gives it solidarity. They are playing on our need for permission to hate, for permission to direct our ire at a bad guy. They are playing on our hunger for a villain on whom we can focus our anger. They are playing on an instinct that binds a social group together, as I said, and gives it solidarity. But why can Sanders, Trump, Cruz, and Rubio get away with this? Why, in fact, do we pay more attention to political emails that pinpoint an enemy and scream about an immediate danger more than to positive, policy-oriented emails? Once upon a time, a bunch of experimenters in the 1940s were testing something called the frustration-aggression hypothesis. And they discovered that if you sent a rat charging down a little bowling alley where it was accustomed to getting cheese at the end, and you one day stopped it with a little electrical grid so it couldn't get to the cheese, it became frustrated. And when they gave it something that looked like another rat, you would expect that, oh, this great frustration, surely it would huddle and cuddle with the other rat in order to give it comfort and get comfort in return. That is not what happened. The rat who had been frustrated on his way to the cheese beat the shit out of the rat look-alike, usually a bottle brush. So a bunch of experimenters tried something that snuck by in the literature. It made it into the middle of their article, but didn't even make it into the introduction or the end. They put 7 rats on a hot plate, and they turned up the heat. Did the 7 rats comfort each other to overcome the pain? The very opposite happened. The rats immediately felt out who were the 6 strongest and who was the one weakest. And the 6 strongest beat the crap out of the one weakest. That's scapegoating. That's something we use in human societies. We use it all the time. We use it in narrative, a bad guy, a villain. And we use it in politics, where we need a bad guy and a villain. Why does scapegoating work? It pulls our animal instincts to the surface and it lets them revel, dance, and play. But it does more. We are hierarchical creatures. We fight to rise in the pecking order. We fight to move up on the social totem pole. We fight to climb the social ladder. We need people below us. Some of us agree with Bernie or the Republicans, but we think we are watching out for the good of America and for the good of the poor. In fact, we are not. We are afraid. We are afraid that those below us are rising and may equal us. Or that, God forbid, those below us may climb even above us. We are afraid of the poor. And we're afraid of the very rise in their status that we sometimes think we are fighting for. Meanwhile, we are also resentful of those above us. If only we could bring them down a notch or two, we would rise a little bit higher. Why? Our status is relative. It all depends on how we stand with relationship to others. The rise of others threatens us. Their downfall gratifies us. That's why we occasionally gloat over gossip about the downfall of a celebrity like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who fell from grace because of a private sexual matter, something that was none of your business and none of my business either. His affair with a member of his household staff. And that's one of the reasons why Republicans gloated over Bill Clinton's sexual escapades with Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office. That was another private matter that was none of our business and had nothing to do with the politics of a presidency. But expand your scope for a minute. Think globally, not locally. Think in a time frame of 20 or 100 years. What's really happened to your life and mine? Yours and mine. Thanks to the Walton family, Walmart, and its competitors like a newcomer, Amazon.com, you and I can now afford things that were too expensive for us 20 years ago. You and I can also afford things that simply didn't exist in 1996, like your smartphone, your apps, your personal DJs, your Pandora or your Spotify, like the games you play on your phone when you're bored out of your mind and waiting in the dentist's office, like the Google in which you can look up anything you're curious about almost any time of the day, like Wikipedia, where you can also look up just about anything there is, like your health app that tells you how far you've walked and how many hours of sleep you've gotten, like Facebook and Twitter, where you can put up an idea, broadcast it to your friends, and get answers back in seconds, even from the other side of the earth. Like Skype, where you can video chat with your friends who are 2,000 miles away, face to face, and a whole lot more. Even if your paycheck has not gone up, you have powers that you could not have imagined 20 or 200 years ago. One of my friends just had a heart attack at a very young age. In a previous era, he would have been dead. But thanks to a quadruple bypass performed with techniques that didn't exist a few decades ago, he is likely to live another 30 years or more. And someday the person getting that extra 30 years will be you or me. Look, you and I have these fabulous things like YouTube, in part because the poor have been lifted from poverty by the hundreds of millions, especially in places like Taiwan, South Korea, China, India, and Vietnam. Today, the folks in those countries aren't poor anymore. At least most of them aren't poor anymore. Why? They're making your laptop. They're making your smartphone. They are making your high labor input shoes that weigh a third of what they did in the 1950s, and provide support for your feet of a kind that no one in the mid-20th century could even dream of. A strange thing happens, when those poor for whom you and I have campaigned and crusaded rise, it threatens us. It threatens our pecking order standing. So you and I are tempted to scapegoat. If you are a conservative, you turn your anger on immigrants. If you are a Bernie Sanders fan, you turn your anger on Wall Street and the billionaire class. But if you get things wrong and cripple the creativity of Wall Street, the creativity of the billionaire class, or the creativity of immigrants like Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX, who comes from South Africa and is an immigrant, or the Russian immigrant who co-founded Google, Sergey Brin, you could end up crippling all of us. The bottom line is this: watch your hierarchical instincts. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them convince you that they are the voice of reason. Fact check them. Sometimes they may be right. And watch out for scapegoating. We are all getting richer, no matter how you slice it. So by all means, tax the super rich at the rates that conservative Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower was taxing the super rich at in the 1950s and mostly the 1950s. But be careful not to kill the geese that lay the golden eggs. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or want to know why? Ask how. And now for the sleazy, slimy, slippery, sneaky little off button. I think I've got it.